recording meeting alert. I guess it's not going to alert me. All right, there it is. We're going to call to order the City of Sherwood Planning Commission meeting for September 14th, 2021. And we'll do roll call. Vice Chair Kai.
Present.
Commissioner Whiteola.
Present.
Commissioner Giles.
Here.
Commissioner Vance.
Here.
Commissioner Brown has not checked in, and Commissioner Simpson, I am here. All right, so our first item is the consent agenda, which consists of the July 27th work session and regular meeting minutes, the August 10th work session minutes, and the August 24th work session minutes. And before I ask for a motion, I would like to, I contacted Erica earlier today, and in the July 22nd meeting minutes, item 4, community comments, in reading the recorder's note, it was not clear that the 2 members of the public arrived after the public hearing had been closed. So it's typed out of order because that's the order of the agenda, but they actually arrived after the public hearing was closed. So their comments, even though they're about an item that was on the agenda, the hearing had been closed. So I asked if that could be amended to read that they arrived late and that I reopened the item with the consent of the commission. So those are the edit I would like to make in the recorder's note under community comments. With that change, do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda as edited?
I'll move to accept the consent agenda as edited, amended.
Amended.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the consent agenda as edited. We'll take a roll call vote. Vice Chair Kai.
Aye.
Commissioner Whiteola.
Aye.
Commissioner Giles.
Aye.
Commissioner Vance.
Aye.
And I vote yes also. Motion passes. Council liaison announcements. Councilor Scott.
Yes, hi, good evening. It feels like it's been a while since I've done one of these updates at our Planning Commission meeting, so probably a number of things to update you all on. A couple of things off the top, obviously, I'm sure everyone has heard by now, but the Robin Hood Festival, which had originally been delayed into September, has been canceled for this year. So that's the unfortunate, sad news of the reality of the times we live in. I think the committee is still planning to do their winter event, and they're working diligently on that and hoping they'll be able to make that happen in a safe way. And of course, they'll plan on coming back next summer, in our normal time frame, and hopefully we'll be able to get back to having these awesome community events again next summer. The other big news that has come out fairly recently is, well, a couple of things I'll add. We hired a new city manager. So Keith Campbell has been hired and accepted the position. I think he will officially start, I believe it's in October, right, Julia? End of October, roughly?
I think it's October 7th.
October 7th. Okay, so about 3 more weeks. He had about a 6-week window. He accepted the position about 3 weeks ago, and he's got 3 more weeks to finish up his job down in Staten, and we'll be starting here then. And of course, huge kudos to Kristen Schweitzer, our not community services.
Yeah, she's community services.
Yeah, community services director, who's been admirably filling in for Joe, or after Joe's absence in that role. So, kudos to her as well. And then welcome Keith here in a few weeks. City Council had a couple of public hearings last week. We had one around the much delayed and worked on sign code amendments that I know everyone on this committee is very familiar with, or at least those of you who've been on the committee for a while, because I think the planning commission worked on that for quite some time, passed it on to council. We worked on it a little bit, delayed it in COVID, and had a first reading some time ago. We finally had our second reading last week, and that those changes passed last Tuesday, so those will go into effect shortly. The main changes there are twofold. One, the flag signs, as some people call them, teardrop signs, feather signs, if you will, kind of the long fabric signs that are on long, tall poles. Those have been banned outright in Sherwood in all zones. There's going to be a communication and education period of time to give businesses, time to adapt, as well as a potential buyback program. Hasn't been passed yet, but it's being discussed. So that's one thing. The second public hearing was the first reading of of some recent changes you all passed on to us around residential, high density residential, and commercial land use. So you guys made some recommendations to council. We took that up. Had our first reading. I think we were asking staff to come back with a couple of minor updates just to clarify the language and close some potential unintended loopholes, that might arise there. So we should have a second hearing on that at our next meeting in next week. And then, of course, looking ahead to next week, in addition to that, we have a work session scheduled that will talk about some upcoming design updates for our Oregon Street improvements. We're going to revisit the residential design standards. I know you guys are intimately familiar with that work that you've forwarded along to council recently. We're going to have a work session on that to review that and some other additional updates there. And then we have one public hearing next week, which will be the second reading of the ordinance I just discussed around high density residential and commercial use areas. And then another note, looking ahead into our first meeting in August. So on Tuesday, October 5th, work session, we are planning to talk about backyard chickens. I know that's an issue that gets brought up a lot by the public. So we promised a work session on that. So that will be happening as of right now in October. I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is a lot from the council. You guys have a lot on your plate. Staff announcements.
Councilor Scott gave a really good update. So the only announcement that I have is we're going to be having a Sherwood West Relook virtual online open house in October. So when that is up and running, of course, Planning Commission, you'll get a link to that site, and we'll be doing an extensive public outreach campaign for that as well. And then the draft comp plan. So we had a meeting, a work session with council on that draft document last week. It went very well. And we are expected to have our first hearing on that document in late October or early November. So that is underway as well.
That's it?
That's it.
All righty. Okay, we're moving on to community comments. Pursuant to House Bill 4212, citizen comments and testimony for public hearings must be submitted in writing to planning@sherwoodoregon.gov. And to be included in the recording for this meeting, the email must state that it is intended as a citizen comment and has to be received 24 hours in advance. Erica, last we spoke, you had not received any. That's
still correct.
Okay, so we do not have any citizen comments. Item 6 is new business. Our new business this evening is a public hearing on case file LU 2021-009-MM. Oh, major modification. All right, so before we proceed, I didn't ask Erica. I'm reading the, is this
Yes.
quasi-judicial legislative?
Quasi judicial.
All right. This is quasi-judicial. So the public hearing on LU 2021-009 MM Cedar Creek Multifamily Development is now called to order. To maintain compliance with public meeting laws and pursuant to House Bill 4212, this meeting is being conducted electronically. The public notices for this meeting stated that citizen comments and testimony for this public hearing item had to be submitted in writing at least 24 hours in advance in order to be included in the record. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present their staff report. Questions, if any, by the hearing body for staff. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and time will be limited as follows. Applicant 30 minutes. As previously noted, public testimony was required to be submitted in advance in writing. Staff will read the first 4 minutes of comments received. Any comments received, the full text of those comments have been provided to the hearings body and the applicant in advance of the hearing and will be included in the record. The rebuttal from the applicant is the remainder of the 30 minutes. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the commission. We will then close the hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public or the applicant. Discussion by the commission. A decision may be made by the Planning Commission at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this will be the only notice of that date you will receive. The Planning Commission's role in this decision is to provide a final decision, and any appeal will be to the City Council. In reaching a decision on the application, the commission must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report, which was included in the materials for this meeting and posted on the city's website. Please note, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to enable the commission, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Also, failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval, again with enough detail to allow the commission to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. At this time, I will take a roll call to ask members of the commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please note or indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing. I do want to disclose an ex parte contact between myself and Commissioner or Vice Chair Kai. He called me today to ask about allowed uses and confirming the code that was in place at the time the application was submitted, knowing we had just gone through the changes, and asked about the Washington County letter and the parking plan. And because I had received notice that this was going to be continued, I had not read the documents when Vice Chair Kai called me. I was not able to comment on either one of those items. And a question regarding school capacity was asked, and the answer is, as staff knows, we can't take into account school capacity in any application before the Planning Commission because that is not within our purview. And that was the extent of our conversation, to the best of my knowledge and my notes. I'm going to go ahead and go to Vice Chair Kai. Do you have any further expansion on our, and I don't believe that that impacts my ability to participate fairly in this hearing, and I intend to participate. Vice Chair Kai?
The only further thing I would add was in regards to Washington County, my question was regarding trip generation. on that issue. I as well don't feel any of this precludes my ability to participate on the matter.
All right. Commissioner Widola? Do you have
No.
any ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest?
No, nothing to declare.
Okay, Commissioner Giles?
I do not have anything to declare. Sorry.
All right. Commissioner Bance?
Nothing to declare.
All right. And Commissioner Brown, I don't believe has joined us at this time. So I understand that the applicant is not participating this evening and that he's just requested a continuance. So I will turn it over to staff to provide additional information for us this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Simpson and Planning Commissioners. Eric Rutledge, Associate Planner. Hopefully you all got the email communication that was forwarded. As was stated, the applicant requested a continuance to the hearing. The date requested is October 12th, 2021. And we did receive the reason for the request stated in the letter is to meet with the neighboring commercial property owners as part of the larger Cedar Creek development. And we did receive an extension on the 120-day local decision deadline that's equal to the amount of the days of the requested continuance, 28 days. So the new 120-day deadline would be December 29th, 2021. And that's all the update I had for you this evening, unless you have any questions.
Just for clarification, the packet that was sent out to us, we are to retain these documents because the general application itself is not changing. You're going to provide additional information that'll be supplemental, exhibits and potentially a modified staff report.
Potentially, I think it's we'll see where things land after the applicant sort of meets with the commercial property owners and the outcome of that. If revised materials submitted, we'll definitely get that to you as an exhibit to the application. Yep. And then if findings change as a result of the new material, we'll get that out for you as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. Are there any questions of staff at this time? All right, then I would entertain a motion that we accept the applicant's request to extend or to continue this hearing to October 12th with the resulting tolling of the 120 days to December 29th, 2021.
Chair Simpson, I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, excellent.
I move the Sherwood Planning Commission continue the public hearing on the application for Cedar Creek multifamily development, project number LU 2021-009, major modification, to the meeting date of October 12th, 2021, at the request of the applicant with their understanding or their agreement to toll the 120-day deadline extended to December 29th, 2021.
Excellent.
I second the motion.
All right. Commissioner Giles has seconded the motion. Is there any discussion or questions on this? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Chair Simpson, yes. Vice Chair Kai?
Yes.
Commissioner Widola?
Yay.
Commissioner Giles?
Yes.
Commissioner Bance?
Aye.
And Commissioner Brown is absent. So we have a unanimous continuation of this hearing. And we will not be penalized for keeping our blue bags until October 12th with a big old giant packet in them.
Thank you, Chair Simpson.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we are now moving on to, we must be close to the end of the evening because Joy is in front of us and she seems to unfortunately always have the last agenda item, which is in this case, residential design standards.
Excellent.
Yeah, but it's like, I think it's like 2 hours too early. I mean, maybe we should take a break and come back at 10.
No, I'm really excited that I only have 12 slides tonight. So we are going to definitely end before 10 o'clock. So if you guys are ready, I will share my screen. And Erica, I might need your assistance in regards to making sure, because I tend to lose people.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, can you guys all see my PowerPoint?
Can you
It
put
is
it
not-
in presentation
Oh, how do I do that? Shoot. Okay, there's, oh,
click on the yeah, on the bottom?
okay. Oh boy. Let me see. Sorry. Technical difficulties here. Show presenter's view. Yes?
No, it's the other view.
Hide presenter's view.
Yes.
Do
And
you-
then if you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, there's like a
Yes.
little projector.
Yes,
You want to click that.
I did. Do you not see this?
Oh, it's not going to full screen.
Okay, let me see if I can put this down. Because does that help?
No, we can't see it at all at this point.
Oh boy. Okay.
Do you have two
Um,
screens?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the problem. When you're going into presentation mode, which is fine, but then what the problem is, the screen that you're sharing to Teams is the wrong screen. We're
Okay.
seeing your presentation screen instead of the other one.
Okay. So let me just escape. Let me just try this one more time.
I will say that's one of the cleanest desktops I've ever seen.
I'm trying. It's like I'm trying. Okay. Are you seeing this then? Like
Yes,
my
we see
normal?
we see your PowerPoint screen with all of the
Okay.
slides on the left. Yep.
Oh boy. Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out because every time I put it on start beginning, you guys lose it, right? You
Well,
don't.
nothing happened yet.
Okay. So it's the
Yeah.
same.
But what you
Oh.
need to do is either do it from here and we'll live with it, or you can go into Teams and when you choose share screen, choose the other one. So if you click on,
Okay.
yeah, there you go.
Okay. So let me just try this again. PowerPoint. Okay. But then I lose people. Oh, okay. Let's just work off of this. Is that okay?
That's
I mean, I don't know exactly what's going on outside of, I will try to make it as big as I can. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Joy Chang, Senior Planner, of course, with the Planning Department. Tonight, we are actually going to be discussing 3 key elements that we've had discussed previously. The first one is residential design standard checklists. And the checklist itself, I provided you guys 2 different copies or 2 different versions. The one is the original that you guys proposed, and another was the revised that it was just a menu list of where the developer can choose. So we'll further discuss those. Secondly, we'll also talk about primary elevations. The 15% window and entrance doors as requested. I actually took building permits that were submitted to us and did the calculations, and we'll go over those in detail. And the third final thing that we'll be discussing is secondary elevations, very specific to side elevation and rear elevations. Side would apply to like typically corner lots, and rear would be like double-sided, double frontage lots. So with that, let's just move on here. Luckily, these were in your packets as far as these two different versions, the original and the revised. Again, as a reminder, the overall intent of the design standards is to have homes that look high quality and maintain the overall small town feel of Sherwood's. Both of the elements, or both of these design checklists, identify the first three key design elements, meaning the entry, location and orientation, the garages and off-street parking area, and 15% window and door openings. Then they start differing on page 3 as reflected here, where the original we would require at least one element to be incorporated from each of the subsections A, B, and C, which are porches, roof, and window element. And then it continues on where there would be 2 additional elements from the laundry list of choices. So that was original. And then the revised, again, the 3 key elements to begin with, as far as entry, location, garage, and off-street parking, and the 15% window and door openings, and then additional 5 elements from the laundry list. That is, so those are the changes, and just because you guys wanted them to see how they would look like, and so we drafted them out. In addition to that, there's going to be different ones for like cottage clusters, some townhomes, checklists, just because there's very specific design elements that are definitely different. So there would be several checklists, residential design, based on the type of proposal. But they're all consistent, where we're gonna, they're all clear and clear objectives, standards in that regard. So what I did do is provide examples based on the original and also on the revised. And this beautiful home is built in Sherwood. All of the elements that were required for the original and also the revised have all been met. This particular home, the single story, the window openings and door openings isn't satisfied, because based on my approximate calculations, it only had 14.19% of window openings and window and door openings. So it wouldn't meet that standard. And again, all of these homes are built in Sherwood today, but all of the other elements were satisfied.
Does that include the windows in the garage?
Yeah, I counted those also. This beautiful home, definitely, I mean, I should say all of them are beautiful, but this particular home also didn't meet the 15% window coverage. My calculations was approximately 14.35%. And so it wouldn't, so the single story and this particular home wouldn't pass muster in regards to us being able to approve it based on the design standards. So the questions as we move forward is, one key question is, should we keep it based on the original format, or should we have design standards that allows for more flexibility based on the revised? We can definitely continue this conversation. I'd suggest after we go through all these other examples. But now I see, oh, okay. Commissioner,
yeah, I was going to ask you, Joy. There's some folks who have their hands up. Do we want to take questions now or wait till the end?
We can definitely take questions now. Commissioner Giles?
Yeah, so it seems like with even the rough approximation, we're within a percentage point here. Does that just literally mean you make the windows, a foot bigger, and we're in? Because in terms of vibe, yes, this one feels more closed off than the first one does a little bit, but it doesn't seem, like it would stick out necessarily, right? So if we just, or I know there were some ideas about, is it, window frame only, or is it the shutters, or you know what I mean? Like, can we make it so that we include some of that? Because it feels like we're in the ballpark here, and I don't want to throw it out because we're, because it feels like we're close, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Is the garage door not included in that 15%?
No, it's just the windows within the garage.
But the front door is.
Correct.
Kind of odd.
Do you double count it if there's a window in the front door?
Yes. Like in this particular example, that rectangular window is also counted. And let's just say it was a see-through. I mean, the door itself, the opening was also counted.
So before we get stuck on the 15%, we can further discuss whether 15% is correct. But I was going to ask, can you go back to that other one, the third example?
Oh, sure. So it was this particular one, but there you go.
So how did it pass the garage not being more than 60%?
That would be my question. Good.
Because that, I mean, to me, that looks like 75%.
So let's just see here. As far as
The garage door.
okay, so it says the front elevation of the garage may not extend in front of the longest street-facing elevation of the primary structure. You are absolutely correct. So I did miss that. So that's a no on the garage design standard.
Plus, it's also greater than 60%, correct?
I did not calculate that. It could possibly be because just because we would be measuring all the way up to the rooftop. But I did not.
Wait a minute. I thought that 60% garage standard was basically just measuring
Linear.
the left edge to the right edge linearly. It's not a square footage measurement.
That's correct.
That's correct. So then it does not meet it. So again, instead of this design element, it's definitely an X. So I did miss that. So thank you for catching that, everyone.
And then that also, okay, perfect. That was my question, was just that. It was
okay.
Commissioner Giles has a question.
Please. Go ahead.
Okay.
Nope. My question was answered as well. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So this particular slide. So again, this was based on the calculations of the windows and the door. And I'm just identifying them. And so that's where the conversation in regards to how do you guys want to proceed tied to that. So again, these are all existing homes built in 2017 and 2018 off of Southwest Yorkshire, Copper Terrace, Anna. As you can tell from these elevations, true elevations, as far as being permitted through the building permit process, only one home met the 15% window and door opening standards. So we can definitely continue the question after. I would say, just because I know that there's also public comments, so we can have all these questions at the very end.
Thank you.
All right, and so let's move on to the next examples that I have for you guys. Secondary elevations. The next 3 slides are very specific to side elevations, and they are based on those same building permits. So just for consistency, they're all 3 different building permits. So anywhere from 4.57 to almost 3%, depending on which elevations right next to that corner lot. One is based on 10% or had a 10% opening, just because this was a tiered elevation. So we calculated it based on the elevation that was closest to us. While this is only 5.19. And then, so those first 2 were the 2 stories. And then our example for the single story was 6.78 to 8.72%. And I know that you guys have, staff was suggesting originally 5% in regards to these side elements or secondary elevations. And then, but I know that the conversations is still continuing because there was, is 5% enough, or should there also be additional design elements that are tied to these secondary elevations? Chair Simpson. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. If these windows had 3-inch trim and or shutters and or an awning, would the shutter element linked to the window be counted towards the window door element?
We have not written the regulations in that manner, but we can definitely do that.
Because I guess my thought being is, if, and understanding that secondary elevations, people sometimes are concerned about privacy, and there's opportunity for that. And even in the front elevation, I was thinking if an architectural, I don't know what they call it, where they have the little, some sort of decorative piece above the garage, if that particular element, how would that be?
Because that is an element that is listed as a dormer. So it is another element that could be chosen as far as design.
So just the little thing that goes over a garage, some sort of like decorative thing. Okay. Yep. So that's my question. If we were to contemplate 10% but allow shutters, awnings, and
architectural interest, right? We're just saying don't put the cheapest window in and dress it up a little.
Yes. That. But I want to, it has to be prescriptive so that staff can say check mark yes or no. So if a shutter measures X, then, if we added shutters to these, they would well exceed, just even on the 2 vertical windows, there would be, it seems likely that would it be in excess of 10% easily. On the one that's 8.7, put up 2 shutters that count towards it, or something like that.
But again, that's, I know it needs to be prescriptive, but can we also include, framing it out? I mean, certain styles of houses don't look good with shutters, and so can we say, hey, you can also frame it out in wood, if it's at least 6 inches, or whatever those additional architectural interests are.
Yeah, the 10% includes the 3-inch trim around the outside, which is also one of the design elements in our laundry list. That gets them towards their 10% glazing, and it is an additional checkbox on the window element.
Why do we? This is the side of the house, right? and we've already talked about corner lots. If it's a side that's street facing, that's a different story. This is, I guess I should just ask why do we care that much about the side?
So,
I mean, my house is, kind of isn't, it's got a big side wall and it has only a couple windows, but we got trees and I mean, nobody notices. Why is this a concern?
Commissioner Bounce, it is secondary elevations that are seen from the public right of way. So
Okay.
it only applies to a corner lot, or
Okay.
if your house is adjacent to a public access way, like a path. That would be the only time that the secondary elevations would take in play.
Okay, got it. All right. So this is that case then when it's adjacent to a street or something. All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So definitely that's something for us to consider as far as the commission in regards to adding additional elements that could get us to a certain percentage. But you as a commission would definitely need to direct staff if that is your wishes. So let me just move forward on to the next couple of slides because we're almost done. I can't believe it. So these are the same home that we've identified as far as building permits. And as you can tell, this would only apply if it was like a double frontage lot, like the back is also a street, and then it has a front that's a street, where the rear elevation would even be considered. But you can just tell that these exceed, from the 5% to the 10%. I mean, they're all above and beyond all the standards that we were looking at in regards to it. So they would meet, the rear elevations would meet the standards tied to secondary elevations. But I wanted to just point that out.
And this would also be true if they were alley loaded houses with a front elevation, with the front of the build. So like over near Target, they have front facing houses and alley loaded garages that are facing a public street. So the rear elevation is seen from the public street, as is the front of the house, because that's facing it's the primary front entrance, but there's also a secondary back exit entrance where the garages are.
So alley loaded, it truly does depend too if it's a public alley versus a private drive that accesses the parcels, because we've previously through the Planning Commission, last time it's public right of way is what we've identified as where we would be considering these secondary elevations. Just to note that sometimes rear loaded townhomes are on a private drive versus a public right of way.
Right, understood. Commissioner Bounce.
Yeah, I really appreciate you drawing these red lines here to kind of clearly show how this is being calculated. One thing that kind of struck me, though, that we might want to talk about is the inclusion of roof elements in your outline. So like your item on the far left here includes the lower roof, but maybe not upper roof. And where this really comes into play, I think, is in your third example up above, the one that had the garage thing. I don't know if you can go back to the slide where you had the red outlines for that one. So yeah, up one more. Yep. So you can see right here, we haven't hit the 15% threshold because roof elements are included. And when I look at this house, I think that's probably okay. Like just conceptually that meets kind of it's got enough design. Where are they going to add more windows and stuff? But if you exclude the lower level roof elements from the calculation, the denominator goes down and you have much more percentage coverage. And I think that the roof elements add kind of a distinguishing mark in and of themselves that makes it okay. So I think it's just something worth talking about how we do that.
I agree. That makes perfect sense.
Okay. And I think I only have one last slide here. as far as this afternoon, I sent out comments from Matt Shue and Marilyn Mays and concerns with the additional design guidelines. Basically, as bulleted, they thought that the sampling of the visual preference survey wasn't significant enough since it's only 1% of Sherwood's population. And they indicated that the design guidelines go too far without proper or solid base of reason. And that the design guidelines are arbitrary design rules based on taste and what, and questioning what keeping Sherwood, what does that truly mean? And requesting that the guidelines be based on scientific reasons for a healthier environment. So that, I believe, was the summary in regards to their correspondence. But I wanted to let you know that we did receive it and that the committee can, or the commission itself can discuss. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
We're looking for discussion on that. We can. I think that's.
Uh-oh. I think we lost.
Okay.
Okay. Hi there.
Hi. My battery died a lot faster than I thought. My apologies.
Okay, so I just summarized the one community letter that we did receive from Matt Shue and Marilyn Mays. And this is an opportunity for the commission to discuss that or defer it later. But I do want to put it on the record that we did receive those comments.
Will you include the complete content of that letter with our first hearing packet? And
yes.
Make it like the first citizen comment?
Yes, for sure. We will include it as a community comment, so it's part of the record.
Good.
Perfect.
That means it'll get looped into that overall discussion. Okay, rather than kind of bantering around now. Yeah.
Since I didn't see it, I have no comment. So.
Let's see. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you I did mail it or email it out this afternoon so that you did have it. But we did not include it as part of the packet originally because it came later. So that's pretty much the end of my PowerPoint, outside of the fact that, as you already heard, the public engagement we were going to do at Robin Hood Festival isn't happening, which is a bummer. But our next event is City Council work session. Just Councilor Scott mentioned, that's on the 21st, so next week. Next Tuesday. And then ultimately we are planning on having hearings October 26th and the 9th, if needed, in front of you as far as the Planning Commission. So this is the opportunity now in regards to discussing all of the elements that were presented to you today. So then we can, if there is consensus, we can bring it forward to next week at City Council and let them know what the commission has decided.
Okay. So going back to the checklist, I guess, do we want to start with checklist or do we want to look at 15% and calculations and elements within the calculations?
It's up to you because the checklist itself, we would be able to modify based on direction that you guys give us tonight.
Okay. Does anybody have any, oh, wait. Let me go to my participant list. Does anybody have any immediate thoughts, comments regarding Joy's presentation.
I wasn't sure what next steps are, is because we saw the the screenshot of the new document, without, I don't think I've seen the full document. Is it going to be part of the public hearing around this, or is it like, if we're okay with what we saw tonight and just go straight to council, what happens next?
So tonight is definitely just a work session.
Okay.
I am going to draft or refine the latest copy of the amendments that have been proposed to be consistent with what the commission is recommending. We can modify it, and then what happens is we would present this in front of City Council as far as a work session. And typically, any direction that Planning Commission provides, they will take that in consideration. But ultimately, it's going to go in front of a hearing in front of your body in October.
So the what she had as the PowerPoint on the residential checklist was actually the last 6 pages in that big binder clip that looked like it was for the other hearing item. Was the last 6 pages were the
last 6 pages.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, there it is. Look at that. Boy.
I missed it myself.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Joy was being nice by not being like, he was in there.
I guess my thing is I missed it too until I anyway, it was not clear that it was part of our packet. I was going to ask if there is any reason why we can't have the 2 checklists run through the city council and then both checklists come to us at the hearing. Or, one thing that would be helpful also when you ask them to prepare the packet, if you could, first off, if there were a colored sheet separating the agenda items, that would really help. Because the other thing that's happening, which is really difficult, is the residential design checklist is on the back of the last exhibit for the hearing item before, and because that hearing item's continued, I happen to have luckily I have a really bad photocopier, but I have a photocopier that I was able to make a copy of it and then put 1 page in the, so it really need to have page separations on that. And then if they had been separate, if each of the checklists had been copied separately, then we could have compared them side by side. But because they're back to back, the back to backs were more confusing. So does any commissioner have one compelling, I can't stand this checklist because we have list one? So there's 2 comparisons. 1 element from each of the 3 and then 2 more, or the other option is just pick 5. And I guess the reason we had started with this, and I think why I've been more advocating for it, is if we get to pick 5, I can pick 5 elements that will not address garages and will not address porches and will be potentially not even address an additional window element. I could pick roof eaves that have a 12-inch out. I could put eave braces underneath it. I can do horizontal lap siding with a belly band trim. Oh, I guess I have to have 5. And then I could put trims around my windows. So the least amount that I can do is, or I could just paint it 4 different colors, which then the first time someone paints their house, it's no longer in compliance. So I really have 5 elements that I can choose. I don't hit porches, I don't hit windows, and I don't hit garages. And we were anticipating having, so that's why my concern of if we just get 5 from a laundry list, you could really easily pick 5 elements that don't assure a quality product. I mean, they'll be better than nothing because they'll have 5, but
could we be creative about it and say, you got to pick 3 from this list, and then any additional, 2 from this list or whatever, right? So you divide it up that way.
yeah, and that's what the first suggestion is that they pick 1 from porches, 1 from roofs, 1 from windows, and then they get 2 more from any place. And that means that we have our entries accentuated. It means our roofs are dialed in, and that our windows are treated, and that allows flexibility so that they can pick a design, but we're not telling them which design they have to do. They just needs that the windows are trimmed, or there's shutters, or there's bay windows, or there's some element that is, even if it's just grids on the windows, you can do a more modern design by picking different elements, but it means that there is something done in each of the areas that, going back to the public online survey, was that, those were the areas of interest that the community expressed concern about. And I think we froze Joy. Uh-oh, Joy.
I think she'll be back in just a second.
So
But,
is your question, is there a compelling reason to just go back to the pick 5 from the list? Is that what your original? Was your original question, is there a compelling reason to go back to choose any 5 from the list?
Well, the staff has presented it to us the last 2 meetings, and I'm just asking from a commission standpoint, what's your opinion? Do we, I personally have been advocating on one thing, but I want to hear what the commission, and then I'd like to take it to council and see if there is, for or against arguments that would, provide different insight.
Well,
dividing out the different where emphasis goes gives us a greater ability for greater quality control, and I think that's the whole purpose for the residential design standards. If it's just a laundry list of choose 5, I would put money that most developers are always going to choose whatever is cheapest and easiest, and that's not going to guarantee us a quality aesthetic for Sherwood, which is the whole purpose of this endeavor.
So is any other commissioner? Thank you, Vice Chair Kai. That actually it helps.
Yeah.
The clarity of, again, the purpose for doing this is to take what the community has said to us, which is these elements are important to us. Other commissioners have any desire to go to the 5 only of the laundry list so that we can provide to council our recommendation? And it does,
I tend to recall Councillor Scott suggesting that the council had some strong feelings on some of these as well. And I don't know, Councillor Scott, you're there, you recollect what you said about it, but I definitely think I can totally see how you just put out 5 easy ones they take the 5 easy ones. Should we though require at least one element from each of the big 3, or maybe just make sure we at least get 2 of the categories or something to allow for some design variability, and they can pick others? I'd be more inclined to do that. That way we make sure we get at least 1 or 2 of the big 3, but maybe not be so prescriptive as to hit all the big 3, because those are all the main elements of the front of the house. And I almost think you almost get too cookie cutter that way. But we should do more than just pick 5 easy ones. I guess that's my general view.
Excellent. So a compromise would be
Yeah.
at least 2 elements from each of the 1 areas below, or something like that, so that we still get targeted.
At least 1 element from 2 of the areas below, or something. From each of 2 areas below. I don't know, something like that.
And then
and they still get to pick the others from the list. And if they want to pick from the third big one too, that's fine. But
yeah, and then the below the additional design elements actually repeats the elements above, so they could pick.
Right.
They pick 3 elements extra, and the laundry list is inclusive of the items below.
Now, does this include the 60% on the garage somewhere? Or is that a given no matter what kind of thing?
No matter, that's a given no matter what.
That might have been what Councilor Scott was suggesting, that kind of thing, and the 15% overall coverage of the front. Those are both like total givens no matter what. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, and
You are correct.
Yeah,
That's what I was referring to, that council felt strongly about.
great. Okay. In that case, I feel better about pulling back on these big 3, but maybe still require. I could be convinced into requiring at least 1 or 2 of them, but maybe not all 3.
Okay.
Give some latitude.
I could support that. I want to walk that tightrope as well of getting nice design, but I don't want to be too prescriptive, and especially because, part of what, like, I don't want to put too much weight on the keep Sherwood. I heard that a lot when I talk to people, because frankly, some of what keeps Sherwood was done by accident. It was the road was formed because that was the quickest path to get cattle to a train car, right, or something. I mean, there was some of the stuff wasn't planned; it just kind of happened. And so I'd like to be intentional about it, but I also want to, to the staff point earlier. There has been research on what makes better communities and all the other, like, I want to be open to the new ideas and what potentially could be done by people who are more on the cutting edge of designing communities and everything else, right? I don't want to say, well, what worked for the last 100 is going to automatically work for the next 100. And so, but I love Sherwood, and I moved here because of its aesthetic. And so I want to walk that tightrope. So I'd be in favor of what Commissioner Vance just referenced.
Commissioner Giles, would you be like there's the 2 that are absolutely required, the 15% and the 50% overall coverage, 60% garage, and then what do you think, 1 or 2 more of the big 3 here?
Yeah, I would say 2, and frankly, if we have to walk it back because it's not having the desired effect in a few years, then we will. But
I think that's a very probably the wrong way. Like starting less restrictive and then hoping to go more restrictive is
no. I'm the opposite way. I'm the opposite way. I'm saying you go 2, and if we have to back it to 1 because we're being overly prescriptive, then we do that. So I'm in we start out a little bit more strict, not totally locked down, where you have to hit all 3 of the remaining 3, right? You hit 2 of the remaining 3, and then if we have to go down to 1 because it's not having the desired effect, are we saying the same thing, Justin?
I mean, for me personally, I think to give less restriction for a developer and hope for them to give you a better product, I think is a foolish desire. In my opinion, I think if we're more prescriptive about what we want in what areas, we will get a much better product overall. If there were ever is, a groundbreaking developer that wants to bring something that's new that, might catch our interest, I think that's something that we can deal with on a case basis in that case that we can then allow for. But again, I mean, we're trying to we're setting the standard, and I think in that interest, the standard needs to be set high, not with the hope that if we set it low, developers will go above and beyond that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they'll go above and beyond. I'm saying that I could live with. So you and I are arguing of 3 versus 2 of the remaining, right? We're saying do they need all 3?
I really just I don't understand. Are we concerned that developers won't build in Sherwood if we are this have this level of detail? Because no. I think that's not a concern.
No, that's not my concern at all. My concern is that we end up with 500 homes that look identical because we've been too prescriptive.
But I think there's a lot that can be chosen from between each one. I see it at there's in the first one there's 4 options to choose from. The next one there's 6. The one below that there's 5, and they just have to incorporate at least 1 from each section. There's a lot of flexibility within that, and this helps ensure that there's a certain aesthetic standard that they're meeting on all of these important elements. And I don't know why we're negotiating down with ourselves before this starts. So it's kind of baffling to me.
Okay. So I've got,
because the alternative was pick 5 of just about anything. So
right.
That's why we're going back to discuss this.
Yep.
But I don't know why we need to try to meet some middle ground when we're negotiating. This is just.
So Justin, maybe I can, or Commissioner Kai, maybe if I explain it this way, do you understand the tightrope I'm trying to walk between being too prescriptive and being too loose and free, right? That's why I'm arguing with myself. But frankly, if you were to say, hey, we'll start with the 3 and we are, we end up getting the kind of variety that I'd hope we would, I'm also, I can go with your opinion as you've been on the council longer and you've seen more things come through and stuff like that. I just do not want to be overly prescriptive and say, hey, we need all houses that look this particular way and style, because I think that makes communities, it loses the charm and distinctiveness of the community.
I would agree with you if we were only allowing one option in each of the elements and saying you had to do this one thing. But since there's multiple options within each section, it allows them flexibility, but at the same time it ensures a high level of aesthetic interest and quality.
So I think as a commission, I hear that we are at some level in favor of 3 elements being on the plate, that they have to pick 1, 2, or 3, and we can get feedback from council on what they're leaning towards to help us direct a result, because the council may
and I think
they help us make a decision also on this, because the council may have a feedback when they do their work session next week that says you're too prescriptive, go back, or spot on, we need to do it. So I think we can staff can give them our conversation and say that, and we'll just take a general poll of does anybody want just 5 free pick 5 from anything, or how many do you want from the prescriptive 3, I guess is the way I'd say it. And one element that I think we have omitted, which was brought up by the council, and I want to make sure that I think I lost it someplace in here, was a conversation about, we're talking about the building right now, but part of the conversation was landscaping minimum in the front yard. Is that an element that we dropped someplace along the way?
It hasn't been dropped. We are doing the work. It wasn't ready for tonight's in regards to a recommendation of what that percentage is. From the Planning Commission, the last time we met, it was identified that you, as a committee, suggested front yard be versus overall lot landscaping. Should be considered. So now the same plans that I've shown you tonight, I actually have the plot plans that identified the actual paved area, and we'll be doing calculations on exactly minus all of the driveway and pedestrian connections that are paved, how much percentage do we actually have on the front yard to be able to do landscaping. So that analysis is forthcoming. It wasn't ready for you tonight.
But is that going to be part, it's not part of the design element as much as it's part of...
It's a development standard.
It's part of the development standard on the first page, the landscaped area, and that's where the percentage is blank.
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
just like setbacks. It's in that table. Setback, building height, landscape area will be also within that table.
Okay. Okay.
Well, go ahead.
No, that was it. I was just gonna say I so much appreciate having a commission that can have these discussions because they're really important, and we have heard from different members of the community about prescriptive or not prescriptive, or are we, what are we trying to accomplish? And I'm looking at the elements and asking myself, will it require every building to look the same? No, I think there are elements of the building that could be in a modern style that has eaves sticking out, that have eave supports, that have porches and window elements. So we're not prescribing that someone has to build, because, it's not is it a 1960s ranch that we all want to be in, or is it a 1990s, the style house, or is it the new modern 2020 house? We haven't said to any one person, you have to select a style. You have to have architectural features that provide interest along the way, and that's what I was envisioning when I saw people doing that visual preference survey, because there were people that were preferring some of the more modern elements, but even in the ones that they preferred with the modern elements, they still had architectural features that, and we had an old planning commissioner, not old, but a planning commissioner many years ago, that when Target came in was going to be a tilt-up building, and he said he wanted to see eye candy on the front of the thing, and that's what got us peaked roof and pillars and brick and other rock facades, because a commissioner spoke up and said, I think eye candy on big buildings is really important. And I think that is what we're trying to articulate to the residential building community, that eye candy is important because we believe our community wants development that is of a quality and features that are inviting. Even when you're driving down the street, you don't want to see big blank walls, big blank fences. That's not inviting. Having windows to the community and eyes of, that building inviting us to come to the neighborhood is what I keep envisioning. So that's been my passion, is to make sure that we are inviting community and design opportunities. So off my soapbox, and there's where we're at. So
Well, I think I'll value council fee. I'm glad you're going to bring that to them, this question. I don't think it's a settled matter. I'm getting you, Commissioner Kai. I think I know where you stand. I'm generally in favor of less restrictions, generally speaking. But I know we want to. That's the debate. What does keep Sherwood mean? You know, and I don't see it as negotiating against ourselves. I see it as I'm deciding what I want as a Sherwood community member. You know, and what do I want to allow developers to do, and without locking in a particular style, like you say. And by the way, some of this is kind of addressed in that letter that came into, you know, interestingly. And it's good stuff to talk about. So I think a little of that guidance will be good as well. Well, I'm not married to the three.
And I think starting out at that, you know, kind of at the start of this process, allowing council to have more range of choice rather than us whittling it down and then giving it to them. I think starting at a higher level is you know, hopefully something that they'll appreciate, just having more of that flexibility, that freedom to decide, you know, is this too prescriptive, or do we feel that having again, the whole point and intent of the standards is to incorporate standards. If we were to want less, I don't see much of a point of what we're going through. So, but at least starting, you know, again, thinking of it as a point of negotiation, we're at the beginning of this. So kind of in a sense, you know, shooting for the moon, I think is kind of where we should be, and you know, let council weigh in on it.
Excellent.
All right. So just to summarize, the laundry list option is out the window.
I mean, what I just heard Commissioner Kai say is we're going to give council an opportunity to see two from one extreme to the other. There's a laundry list that as a commission, we were not comfortable with. And what we ended up going towards was a prescriptive one that gave us this, but there is some concern from the commission that we may have gone too prescriptive, and a compromise or a median between free form and completely, well, not completely, but more prescriptive. We would like their feedback.
Okay, definitely. We'll provide both of them in addition to the additional elements discussion, as far as is 3 too much, 2 enough, 1, that aspect of it, the discussion that you just had tonight. So we'll relay that back to them. Excellent.
And Councilor Scott, I know we're really, they were very concerned about making sure the 3 that were, you know, the garages can't exceed 60%, windows have to be 15%, circles us back to what we had discussed before. The percentages that you provided, I think First Commissioner Banth's comment about excluding roof elements in the front facade in making the calculation makes many of those either closer, or they would succeed. They would meet the 15% if the calculations were done based on vertical walls, straight plain walls. And I would also entertain that on the elevations would also count when you're measuring it, if they have 3-inch or greater trim or shutters or whatever you call the doodad that's over the garage door. Because the one that didn't pass because it was a single story, but it had a really peaked roof above the garage. If they had put a decorative feature above the garage, that would have added an element that probably would have taken them over the 15%. It doesn't seem cost prohibitive to add a simple decorative feature above a garage door. Am I on base with that? Off base?
I totally agree with you. I mean, I'm also wondering, you know, in the instance of, you know, this is under review and it falls, you know, the numbers are just below the 15% threshold. In both cases, it seems like that there's flexibility enough for, you know, a bigger window to be incorporated to get it over that 15% threshold, or like what you're talking about, Gene, there's plenty of space to incorporate another either opening or element that gets it to there. So
right, and if we're allowing them to count the 3-inch trim, that's one of the features that is in the checklist at the end. So they're satisfying two things. They're getting up to 15% and they're checking off one of the the design elements.
Yeah.
I want to give them credit in the 15% calculation for design elements that they're adding.
Yeah.
On the garage.
Around doors and windows. On doors,
yeah.
Windows, and garages, yeah.
Well, I actually thought we kind of had talked about that, like the overall, like looking at the front as an overall thing and not just focusing on do stuff with one section more.
So say that again.
So you're saying give credit for certain things you're going to do, like around the garage or the windows, toward the overall measurement? Is that,
well, they have to meet,
what you're suggesting? Yeah.
They have to meet a 15% door and window criteria. That's on page 2. That's
yeah.
And if that 15% window glazing element includes the 3-inch trim or includes shutters, we're giving them credit for meeting their 15% by adding design elements that are one of the checklist items. So they kind of get to count it twice, one in the 15% and one as a checklist item.
Would that apply? So like, I guess where I was going is we also have item number 3 on page 2, which deals with particular things around the garage. And one of those is also 15% of the garage door. So the 15% windows in the garage contribute to 15% of the overall front. And so that's and then you've got the, you know, some of the other things you can add here, finish and colors. And that's kind of what I was saying. I thought there was we at least at some point had a discussion of just the overall front facade of the house. Doesn't matter where you do it. As long as you get coverage of design, you're good.
So we did have that conversation, and some of the things were hard to measure. And so we tried to break it down as best as we could into how we can measure these elements separately, so we could be very clear and objective.
I think I think item 3, which isn't numbered, it just says windows. It doesn't say windows and entrance doors. That would be more clear. Because it's not 15% street facing has windows. It's 15% has windows or doors. And could they double count the 15% in a garage door? In my opinion, yes.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
If there's a window in the garage, it's counted towards the 15%, and it counts towards the 15% in the garage door if the windows are big enough in the garage. Yeah.
Which, by the way, is the way Joy was calculating it in her examples. She included those.
And that's perfect. Yeah.
All right, and definitely we can include trim, shutters, or dormer as part of that because the way that the sentence is written, a minimum of 15% of area to the primary street facing elevation must include windows or door or entrance doors, we can definitely add trim, shutters, and dormer to that so that it helps with their calculations.
I just think a third sentence at the end of it, for secondary elevations, a minimum of X percent, and that's, 10% or, 10% is required. And then the end sentence says, for calculating percentages, window trim, side door. I mean, I don't know, the side door glass, when they have an extra, I don't know, they have an extra window beside the door. I don't know if that has a special name. Dormers.
I think you're talking about a side light.
Side light, yes, thank you. Are included in this calculation.
And shutters.
Yes. Design elements connected to windows, including shutters, trim, side lights, are included in this calculation.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we'll modify that to include those elements.
And I just threw out 10% on the secondary element, this secondary. Now, secondary on a corner lot versus a double frontage lot.
Right. The examples that I provided, basically, the side yards are the ones that are having more difficulty in regards to getting the, up to the 5% that we were looking at, or in your case, 10%. But the rear yard, they had no issues in regards to, as far as at least the examples that I had, all the rear yards were 15, 18, 22%, just because many of them had the outdoor sliding door, the back door that created the opening. So I'm not so much worried about the rear secondary elevation. It is definitely the side that would be typically the corner lots.
And I don't think 10% is too much to ask for when we're allowing them to count trim, shutters, dormers, and belly bands. Or, that's a design element, and it's measurable. Maybe not. Maybe we just do.
Is there a consensus as far as the commission?
The 5% example we had seemed pretty light for driving by and seeing that. The 8.5%ers were better. Is 10% the right number? I guess I probably wouldn't go higher, but
yeah.
Okay.
And the one that was 8%, she only counted the glass in the window. So if we're actually getting to count the trim around the outside, it seems like it wouldn't be too far of a stretch.
Yeah, 10 seems good.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, I would actually get double that back because you add the numerator and you lower the denominator. So, yeah, good. Okay, and we'll see that. Maybe next time, Joy, we can see an example of that, like recalculated, to show us what that looks like. See what the percentage is. Okay.
Yes, definitely. Okay, example.
That'll be a good example, because the next time we see this will be a hearing, correct?
That is correct. But the direction that you guys are giving me tonight, that is how we're gonna amend make the changes to the code as reflected. The 10%, the 15% in addition to the other design elements to be included. So that is what you will be seeing, in addition to anything that the city council might suggest or give us a different direction.
Yeah, and is it fair to say that the examples that you're providing will provide examples that we can use on our code book somehow, so that, because pictures in the code always seem to, or at least attached to the residential design checklist, so that people can see that when they're looking at it. I just think it's
I think we could definitely provide like a guideline as far as how do you implement these, as far as part of, yeah, we could definitely provide a guideline as in what do these mean? What do these, what elements are we talking about? Because many individuals, especially the local mom and pop, aren't architects and they don't understand many of these architectural elements. So
Right.
maybe a dictionary or a design guideline that can better assist in implementation.
Wow, I think words are hard to digest when you're already in the middle of a very complicated process. What we've done with the fences, where we actually have pictures in the code, that provided clarity, and your drawings with the red lines really helped. And I think where we can exclude, show someone with 2 stories that we're excluding this part of it, and how the calculation works, if we can have those pictures in the handout or in the code somehow, is going to be great.
Okay, great. I think those were the last 3. Those were the 3 things I wanted to talk to you guys about, and we've gotten to the point of, I think, direction that we can present in front of City Council next week. And then we can definitely probably, report back to you guys just a brief summary as far as if there's a different direction that City Council comes with from the September 21st, sometime in October before your hearing, so that you guys are briefed in regards to where the amendments are heading.
So we're going to, so I'm kind of really liking that this one big hearing was continued, because it gives the luxury of actually having 2 extra weeks to read it, or 4 extra weeks to read it. So is there any reason why the residential design standard aspect of our hearing couldn't be sent out in advance of our regular packet? And just that the staff report, like, get the residential design standards out to us as soon after the council provides their input, even if it's, and then when the actual hearing packet comes out, that's the 2nd meeting in October, right? So I just want to get my timeline right. So council's going to have input on September 21st. Is there any reason why we couldn't have residential design standard draft out to us, and then when our regular hearing packet comes out the week before, it's just a one, what's online is the full packet, but what's in our packet is, see the packet we sent you 3 weeks ago, because you've had a chance to actually read it.
And we for sure have. Yeah.
We have for sure at that point. I mean, not that we haven't all read it many times through numerous iterations, but I have 3 or 4 iterations with notes that I just, like, sitting here tonight went, oh dear, we forgot to finalize landscaping, and that came as a directive from council to ensure that we put that into our thought process, and so I didn't want to miss anything.
You did not, so because we are definitely, the direction was considered just the front yard landscaping. And so there's lots of things happening in the front yard, unfortunately. So we're trying to figure out what is that proper percentage. Erica, your thoughts in regards to being able to turn it around?
Yes, so I agree with Chair Simpson. I think we want to turn this around as soon as possible, as we get council's feedback for next week. On the calendar on October 12th, I have scheduled a residential design standards kind of council debrief or update on that meeting, and that's prior to the hearing on October 26th.
So it's fair to say that prior to the 12th meeting, we will have the draft version of the document that we will then take to hearing on the 26th without any edits.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
That's our goal.
Phew. All right. Any other commissioner? Did I miss anybody's questions, hand raised, comments?
I guess I am just curious, have we heard, I mean, any of the public feedback so far been from developers or builders or anybody that, I'm just curious if we heard, I mean, we've heard from the community quite a bit. That's good. That's awesome. I'm just wondering, you know, on the builder side, what we've heard, there's a lot of issues here, or what their thoughts are.
Yeah, the last, what was the last planning commission? We heard from Riverside Homes, and they suggested that having additional elements to choose from, but definitely having that more flexibility was an ask. Outside of that, I have not heard. Erica, do you?
I do want to mention, Joy, when we received that comment from Riverside Homes, they had listed some extra design elements that we could add, and we have added those extra design elements into the draft code language. So that was helpful.
And so we also did receive comments from David Weekly, concerns tied to vesting and goalpost. As far as preliminary, having, you know, the land use approval at a date certain, and if the applicability of the design elements. So council is still working on that, but we believe at this time, since it's not through a land use per se, as far as like it's not setbacks, it's not development standards that are tied to the site itself, right? A lot itself, and that we would implement it at the time of building permitting, that it might not be subject to the goalpost standards. But there's still questions, and so we're still pursuing answers from our city attorney that's tied to that. And I did ask the same question to DLCD during a development forum to discuss House Bill 2001, and they did defer back to our attorney.
One other comment was there was a developer at the
open house,
the window of open house where we were actually in person, and there seemed to be a gentleman there that was a developer or a builder of at least, I don't know how many homes he builds or what is, but he seemed to have quite a bit of input on from a builder's perspective, and that also gave us an idea for more options, especially garages. He was concerned about you know, natural wood finish or other things, his comments for that. Right. So
okay. Should be an interesting public hearing.
Yeah. How are we doing anything extra on the noticing on the residential design standards than what we normally do? Did we have an interested parties list from the survey that was taken?
Yes, we have everyone that has provided us with their email address have been included as part of the listserv for this project. So we will reach out, and then most likely we will try to do some social media again, just some announcements.
And it will also be posted in the Archer, because we're making the Archer deadline for September, October.
So in addition to that, it's a typical hearing, so it will also be published on the Times.
Yeah, I think it's good that the people that have provided email addresses already through the open houses and the other opportunities, if they're given an email notice of our hearing date with the understanding that because it's not in person, they have a deadline 20. If it would be helpful, because when we get them 24 hours in advance, then it's hard for us to read them on the fly. It would be nice if the email notices say that you have to have them, I think you guys have to have them 8 days before to include them in our packets. So give them the 2 deadlines to be included, a printed copy to be included in the packet, need it by this date, an electronic only version deadline is this date. And I'd sure love to get a bunch of citizen comments in our packets, a week before. So.
What will be, I mean, I've done a few public hearings now, but this one's kind of unique. Seems like, what will be our options coming through that? We've done all this work, right? I mean, staff probably going to present the thing. We'll do, there'll be public, is it like stamp and send it off to council? Probably one. I guess reject, could be another one. Or is there an option for, like, let's say community comments or somebody just out of left field, oh my gosh, didn't even think of that kind of thing, and can we just, is it another continuation kind of option from there too?
We could continue it, or if a perfect example is a citizen comment says, I really appreciate what you have going for my roof elements, but did you consider this design element? And we go, I never even thought about that. As a commission, do we all like it? Head nod. Okay, instead of 6 options, there's now 7 options. So we could incorporate
on the fly.
Yes, absolutely. There is nothing set in stone, and that's why getting public input up till 8 days before, where we can actually read it and see it, is awesome. 24 hours in advance, we can still incorporate it. And if someone has a design element or an option or an idea that as a commission we think has merit, we can, if it's simple, we can add it. If it's complicated, we continue the hearing.
Got it.
And ask staff to rewrite a section on it.
Got it. Yeah, I was gonna say, if there's just a couple of those that are pretty straightforward, just add them on the fly. But if there gets to be a lot of stuff, we'll probably want to reevaluate in the whole, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, and then we have that, and then the comprehensive plan update hearing after that. That'll be a fun night.
So the comprehensive plan, one of the, I know Erica reported on this. We've all seen it as a commission many times. And we even saw the final draft. I don't know if the draft that was presented to the commission last time had the mayor's letter in it or not. That's the last iteration that I've seen, which had the actual letter from the mayor in it. I get confused because I was at the other hearing to know if that was presented to commission or not. But that final draft that was presented to the city council was very well received. They had all had an opportunity to glance through it. A couple of them said that because it wasn't a hearing in front of them, they hadn't read it in full detail. But because we had done so much groundwork ahead of time and had both the visioning committee and the comprehensive plan and a citizen advisory committee, and we had work sessions at each of the 6 building blocks, the council's buy-off on this comprehensive plan and the elements that are in there have been vetted to the point that I don't know what significant changes would be made at this point. There might be citizen comments about adding a new goal or a strategy in the plan, but I think as a document, it's pretty well vetted out and it looks really good. And I can't speak for too many other people, but I can say that I've heard comments that it looks really good. So it looks and feels like what we've done is captured the essence of what we've been driving for through this process. So anyway, or in other words, hopefully a short hearing.
Tonight was the ideal hearing length. Honestly, that was.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it?
Well, actually, I'm curious. What would have happened had we not agreed to continue the hearing and the applicant's not here? What happens?
Then we would have gone to full hearing and made a decision without his additional information.
Okay, interesting.
It's a good question. I think within our code, so it has happened where continuances have been asked more than once, but we, on the first request, I don't believe we didn't have ever denied on a first request for a continuance, but on a second request for a continuance, there has to be merit to the ask, because it really messes with staff, doesn't it? So any other comments on the residential design standards? And again, I thank the commission for the engagement and just all your input. It's made a huge difference in this process. Okay, I'm pausing for a moment as I look for the agenda I just buried. All right. We're moving on to planning commissioner announcements. And the only ask or comment that I was going to make was the importance of having separation pages when they're presented to us. It's really difficult to when they're copied back to front like that. It was, I know
we can make that happen.
Hey, you have powers.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Commissioner Widola.
Yeah, thank you. I've got just two things. Number one, is there any progress on our open planning commission seat? Do we have anybody in the hopper willing to jump in?
That is a great question, Commissioner Widola. We have received one application so far. I have had a conversation with Chair Simpson and Councillor Scott in regards to how we should proceed with interviews for that position. And since we have a couple of, big items, I think, on your plate with the residential design standards and the comp plan, I think the direction that I've received from the chair is let's get through those items first, and then interview the collection of people who have, that have submitted an application. But so far we have one.
Cool, thank you. And then the second thing is more of a statement as far as I hope everyone saw the good news about LAM research and coming into Sherwood. I mean, this is what a lot of us have been, working towards and hoping for, and trying to create a community that has these opportunities. So I saw that in the paper late last week and just very excited about that.
Yes, very exciting. Thank you for sharing that. And again, yeah, Councillor Scott and I did discuss it with Erica that when we spoke, there hadn't been an application turned in yet. And at that point, we wanted to just go back out to the community, get some more applications, and then not throw someone into a hearing on October 26th for a comprehensive plan and residential design standards, having not been involved in a 4-year process at all. So, all right.
I think I mentioned to everybody last time I'm going to be out of town during the week of the next hearing, so I think I'll be able to attend that one.
On October 12th?
Shaping up to be an epic night, but I don't think I'll be able to make it. So, yeah, hopefully you have a quorum still.
I hope so. Anybody other not attending on October 12th? Okay, looks like we'll have at least 4 of us. All right, I don't see anybody else's hand raised. Is there a final opportunity to make a comment? All right, then we will adjourn our meeting/work session. Thank you very much, everyone.